This hour of Hugh Hewitt starts right now on Salem News Channel.
Hey, this is Kurt Schlichter. I'm guest hosting for the great Hugh Hewitt today, and we're going to be talking about the weather. Hey, what is Joe Biden, a meteorologist? We've got some great guests, including Congressman Jim Banks, and of course a bunch of regulars, so stick around for the Hugh Hewitt Show.
You won't want to miss a minute. This hour of Hugh Hewitt is on Salem News Channel. Portions of the following program may contain pre-recorded material.
Morning glory, America. Bonjour, hi, Canada. I'm Hugh Hewitt. I'm not there today. I'm burdened with 5 grandchildren. Not burdened. I'm loving my 5 grandchildren. So Colonel Kurt has marched into the front line to take over and relieve. Nothing like a retrograde maneuver like I'm conducting today. Take it away, Colonel Kurt, and explain why MacArthur was a genius and why the Marines hate him. Thank you, Kurt.
Thank you, Hugh Hewitt. We got too much to talk about today with all this weather going on. To cover MacArthur, I am Kurt Schlichter, noted meteorologist, because we're all talking about the weather here. I'm Kurt Stormy Schlichter today, in honor of the fact that our president in name only, Joe Biden, was apparently talking to a whole bunch of rich oligarchs about the weather and nothing else. You know, as a friend of the show, Jim Garrity, put it, they were selling access to the president, yet they deny that. Isn't putting him on the phone with people access? Yes, it is. Now, who am I, by the way? Well, I'm a noted Los Angeles trial lawyer. Not that my legal experience is going to help with any of this insanity, because this is nothing like the kind of litigation I practiced for over 30 years. I'm also a retired Army colonel, senior columnist at Town Hall, and the author of the Kelly Turnbull series of conservative action novels. But where do we begin? Well, let's begin with the weather here in beautiful California at dark 30. It's about 71 degrees with about 100% chance of impeachment. So it's, you know, let's just summarize what happened yesterday when Devin Archer, Hunter Biden's friend, and confidant and business partner, who is facing a year in jail for defrauding some Native Americans. He went and he did his deposition to the Republican oversight people. And what came out of this? Well, he testified that adding Hunter Biden to Burisma's board was part of the brand. What is the brand? The brand is the Biden brand. It's becoming very, very clear that Joe Biden was selling access via his meth-headed stripper-loving son. And this was Joe Biden's retirement plan. And holy cow, millions of dollars. And, of course, the Democrats are all up in arms at the Republicans for pointing this out. We had what's his name? Is it Daniel or David Goldman? Daniel Goldman, who's allegedly a lawyer. He's currently a Democrat congressman. Let's see what he says. Cut 16.
And I want to be very clear about one thing. He did describe that there were approximately 20 occasions over the course of their nearly decade-long business relationship where, when one of them called the other, that Hunter Biden would ask his father to say hello to whomever he was at dinner. He said there were some times when it was friends and sometimes when it was potential business partners or business partners. But the witness was unequivocal and stated very clearly that they never discussed any business on that phone conversations. There were niceties and there was a hello and we talked about the weather or whatever it was, but it was never any business.
There we go. Weather. They talked about the weather. You know, my dad's the vice president. Would you like to have him come on and run through the humidity? Perhaps there's a chance of rain. Maybe there's, I don't know, is it an easterly wind coming from Ukraine towards us? I don't know. I look at Goldman and I think of all the times I've been in court against lawyers who were losing, because most guys who came up against me have lost, and how they're kind of treading water in a sea of failure. And that's what I say. You project as much confidence as you can, and you try and state your ridiculous position with as much confidence as you can somehow manage to sum it up. And that's what he did. Let's not forget that this is 180 degrees from what our alleged president has been saying for the last, 7, 8 years about what he did, which is, I did nothing. I had nothing to do with it. I wasn't even there. There were no phone calls. I don't even know what a phone is. Cut number 11.
Mr. Vice President, how many times have you ever spoken to your son about his overseas business dealings?
I've never spoken to my son about his overseas business dealings.
I have never discussed with my son or my brother or anyone else anything having to do with their businesses, period. And what I will do is the same thing we did in our administration. There will be an absolute wall between personal and private and the government.
Do you stand by your statement that you did not discuss any of your son's overseas business dealings?
Yes, I stand by that statement. I did not know he was on the board of that company. I've never discussed my business or their business, my sons or daughters. I never discussed a single thing with my son about anything having to do with Ukraine.
Turns out, upon further review,
I think our president might not be telling the whole truth and nothing but the truth, Dwayne. I don't know.
That may turn out. The fact check on that looks like that's not accurate.
Well, look, Mr. Archer testified that then Vice President Joe Biden got on the phone over 20 times with Biden business associates or Hunter's business associates. I could just see it. Hey, Dad, who's also the vice president, could you get on the phone here? Just say hi. Talk about the wind. Is it raining where you are? Just go through a little about the weather and then get off for no apparent reason. You know, before my dad passed to his reward, when I was doing business, when I was making a deal, my closing move would be to call Dad up and just say, hey, Dad, how's the weather in Redondo Beach?
It's
how's the garden doing? How those zucchinis coming?
You remember when Bill Clinton was sitting in front of a grand jury and he said, "Well, it depends on what the definition of the word is." Remember that whole thing?
I do remember that.
So now we're 10 years, 15, 20 years later, and we're defining what access is. And access apparently is getting Pops on the phone, talking to people that he shouldn't be talking to for money, but that's not access.
Well, remember, look, he doesn't have to say, I am the vice president and I can help you. I think they're aware of that. Okay, it's not like they have to look, these aren't Bond villains, right? Who can sit there and repeat the whole scheme.
But they're not even honest crooks. An honest crook, if they're going to take the bribe, at least own up. Well, okay, you're right, we took the bribe. They're accepting the bribe, allegedly, without even committing to the bit and going along and delivering the other end of it. They're going back on the bribe.
Yeah, well, look, I took the $5 million, but I gave them nothing. Oh, cool. That's great.
So what they
That's
basically
fine. These are
what they basically
good news.
did is they're basically caught being bought, but they won't stay bought. They took the money, but they won't stay bought.
You're dealing with Biden's. So, I mean, it can't come as a shock. By the way, he's up to 7 grandkids now, as of last Friday's news dump.
The polling must have been really bad.
With 2 L's or 1?
Well,
it's funny because he knocked up a stripper while he's on drugs.
No, I'm saying the polling on Joe Biden must have been really bad for him to finally accept. 4 years later. Oh yeah, did I tell you I have another grandkid?
I got another grandkid.
Talk to her every day.
He's great. And my son Hunter's the smartest guy in the world. The guy who's about to plead guilty to tax evasion and not a gun charge. He's getting that diverted along with literally everything else. I wish I had the Biden cachet where I could go to a federal judge, pull this kind of shenanigans, and not end up in the bowels of the Federal Correction Center, looking at the wall next to, a gang member on one side and a pervert on the other. 2 tracks of justice, folks. One for them, one for us. Kurt Stormy Schlichter here, guest hosting for the great Hugh Hewitt. We'll be right back.
Portions of the Hugh Hewitt Show are brought to you by Food for the Poor.
And this is Kurt Stormy Schlichter back. I know it's weak. Wait, look, we've been workshopping names. I'm going with this. Rollin' Thunder.
You see, that's
you like that?
That's a weatherman.
Rollin' Thunder.
In Los Angeles, we've got a weatherman on one of the local channels that's named Dallas Rains. Now, Dallas Rains.
That's a great weatherman
name, right?
Yeah, I'm Rollin' Thunder.
Yeah,
oh, there we go.
Now we're talking.
Wow, that's amazing. In honor of Representative Daniel Goldman's explanation that Joe Biden, our alleged president, got on the phone about 20 times with his stripper-loving, meth-headed son and talked to people, business partners of Hunter, who until yesterday he'd never talked to ever before in the history of ever. And he chatted about the weather because, everybody likes to get their dad on a business call to, talk about precipitation.
Yes, that's exactly that's how you close the deal.
That's my ace move. I'm trying to close a multi-million-dollar settlement. It's like, Dad, is it cloudy? So that's it. On a more serious tip, today is day 2 of Hugh Hewitt's annual summer campaign to help the international nonprofit relief agency Food for the Poor. We need your help today for our friends at Food for the Poor because hurricane season is coming. More weather. What do you think the chances of Biden throwing in some money to help the poor? I'd say about 0% and dropping. Look, seriously, hurricane season means a disruption of food supplies, lack of clean water, and destroyed houses in the wake of powerful storms. In 17 countries, Food for the Poor serves in the Caribbean and Latin America are all headed into the danger zone from hurricanes this year. That's why I'm urging you to go right now to HughHewitt.com, make a donation to Food for the Poor. As a community recovers, permanent housing solutions become an essential part of rebuilding lives. Because your generous donations given today, our partners will be able to measure their future response in hours, not weeks. We're talking about places like Haiti, where Leslie Clerval spoke to us via Skype.
Every single dollar will make a difference going to Haiti because we need to be a transparent organization, and that's been our strength, and also to show our donors our commitment to their hard-earned money that they entrust us with. Food for the Poor, we're not just an organization, we're a mission that is strong, and also we have dedicated people on the ground that's really working faithfully to do God's work.
If you go to HughHewitt.com and make a generous gift, workers like Leslie can be busy rebuilding houses. Thanks to a generous matching gift, just $4,900 can provide a new house for a family that has lost everything during a hurricane. Your gift, combined with large and small donations from others, can make that new home in Haiti or Guatemala a reality. So just go to HughHewitt.com, click on the Emergency Relief Supplies banner, or text Hugh 91999. Or you can phone it in, 855-359-4673. Help you help the poorest of the poor right here in our hemisphere with a gift today from Food for the Poor. So here's where we are. And, it seems kind of, you would think this would be a big deal, but our freaking president is taking bribes. He's literally taking money as the vice president to do things for a bunch of scumbag foreigners. I don't know. I'm upset. It's probably my fault somehow. I'm Rollin' Thunder, a.k.a. Kurt Schlichter, guest hosting for the great Hugh Hewitt. We'll be right back, so stick around. We got a lot more to come.
Don't go anywhere, America. Colonel Kurt Schlichter will be right back after I remind you on the Hugh Hewitt Show that Birch Gold is our sponsor and that you should buy your gold from Birch Gold. I don't know what the price is this Monday. I have no idea this Tuesday what gold is costing or anything this week. I won't check it until Wednesday. But I know if you're going to buy gold, you should do it where I do it, at Birch Gold. And you find them at hughgold.com, hughgold.com, or text my name, Hugh, to 989898. You might just be buying American Eagles or Krugerrands or Canadian Maple Leafs. That's what I recommend. Well, you might be rolling over a portion of your retirement funds into physical precious metals, gold and silver. They will put it in the depository that Birch Gold operates. It is recognized as legit by the IRS. A lot of people want to do this at home. No, do not try this at home. The IRS will not believe it's a 401k unless it's run by an independent third party, and that's where Birch Gold steps in. Get their free information kit at hughgold.com or text my name, Hugh, to 989898. And then do not forget relieffactor.com, relieffactor.com. My friends at relieffactor.com have not raised the price. Even if Joe Biden's inflation gets into double digits, they will not raise the price of the introductory bag of relieffactor.com. A 3-week supply, because that's how long you have to take it every single day to figure out whether or not the 4 pills of Icarian and curcumin or Resveratrol Omega, nature's anti-inflammatories, work for you. I can tell you that 7 out of 10 people re-up, like me. I've been taking it every day for, 10 years, however long since I got my first bag of relieffactor.com. Made all the difference in the world for the minor aches and pains that come with ambling and rambling, for trundling and running, or just out for the evening stroll. Whatever it is that bothers you, whether it's getting the peanut butter down and your elbow hurts, whatever it is, relieffactor.com, give it a try. $19.95 is the starter pack, 3-week, and they have not raised the price. $19.95. And that is because they are absolutely committed to getting you to try it. Once you try it, you will buy it. relieffactor.com, relieffactor.com. Kurt Schlichter will be right back. Don't go anywhere.
Portions of the Hugh Hewitt Show are brought to you by Regnery's The People's Justice, Clarence Thomas, and the constitutional stories that define him.
We are back on the Hugh Hewitt program. I'm Kurt Schlichter, a.k.a. Rollin' Thunder, in honor of the fact that, what's his name, our alleged president got on and, had a few phone calls about the weather. And we're joined by America Greatness's own Liz Sheld. Liz, how's the weather where you are?
Oh, my gosh. It's influence peddling with a little bit of rain on the side. Rainmaker.
Corruption with a chance of justice. About a 1% chance. Or am I being cynical? What do you make of this insanity, Liz? I mean, wow.
Is anyone surprised at the revelations we've got yesterday after Devon Archer testified before the House? I mean, there's plenty of evidence already that this was going on, and Devon Archer confirmed it. The big question is, what does that mean? What will happen? And I don't think anything will happen. But even before Devon Archer testified, we all were wondering who was paying Hunter Biden all this money and why? What were they getting from Hunter?
Well, wasn't he a talented petrochemical expert in Burisma and something in China? And, look, the only thing I'd ever consult Hunter Biden on is how to blast a rail off the rear end of an Estonian hooker.
That's about right, Kurt. He has no skills.
Yeah, well, I would think that's a skill. The guy, look, Joe Biden says he's the smartest dude he ever knew, which may well be true because it's Joe Biden. But this guy's so dumb he doesn't even know how to clear his browser history.
No. Well, he can't even remember to pick up his laptop full of all sorts of sorted image. The average person would be kind of embarrassed.
Yeah, well, just a little bit.
With a bunch of pornography and images of him doing drugs. So,
well, who's the guy who wants to preserve those treasured moments? Who's the guy who goes, here's me naked at a swimming pool with a couple of Latvian prostitutes. I'd like to memorialize this forever. I'm going to just save this. Let's say save to. I just, and Biden's daughter Ashley with her diary.
Yeah.
That's opening up. There's a can of worms.
That family is just a dumpster fire, and it's just one thing after the next, and I guess it may not be a good thing that he's finally acknowledged his 7th grandchild to bring them into this family of,
Is that really a favor?
Dumpster fire, right? I mean, at least they won't let her have the last name, right? Like, didn't they make an agreement that she can't use the Biden name?
Yeah, no, you won't be able to use the Biden name. Oh, no.
It's probably a blessing. That's a gift.
The whole bunch of them are and even these are people who can't even handle dogs. He gets a dog. He gets a giant German Shepherd, right? He's 112 years old. He gets this giant German Shepherd, right? The dog needs running and he needs space and everything, so they cramp him up in the White House with Krusty Dust Puppet. And, of course, the dog goes crazy, bites a couple Secret Service guys. They ship him back to the farm and get another giant German Shepherd who shockingly does the same things.
I'm thinking
what the
it's not
hell?
The dog. I'm thinking it's not the dog, and I'm a firm believer that there are no bad dogs.
I love the dogs.
Owners, so.
Look, I want to make it clear we're not disrespecting the dog. The dogs are the victims here,
Absolutely.
as are the American people.
Yeah, just one of the many victims of the Biden family.
Unbelievable. What'd you think of the plea agreement disaster from last week? I was texting back and forth with Hugh. Hugh said the judge is going to throw this out. I said, Hugh, you're being a little optimistic. You got too much faith in the institution. But he was right. The judge looks at this thing and goes, what the hell?
Yeah, I was surprised because we're so accustomed to these judges just rubber stamping whatever quackery the DOJ puts in front of them, search warrants and FISA warrants, all the courts just seem to go along with it. So I think it was a big surprise. I know I certainly was surprised, but once I learned what was in the plea agreement, it just seemed ridiculous on its face. You're a lawyer, I'm not, but I just thought I'd never seen anything like this before.
Well, I find, look, I've practiced law for 30 years. I've done the federal courts. I've argued in front of the Ninth Circuit. I am trying to think of what would happen to me if I went to a judge and carefully hid the most important provisions of whatever I was trying to get the judge to sign. Like, it's in the third annex behind the fourth appendix, in subpart A671. And all I can think of is the climax of the movie Oppenheimer.
Oh, I didn't see it, so don't spoil it for me, but I can imagine. I do know how it ends.
It has a happy ending, though not for the Japanese.
Yeah, I think you're right. We want to think that there's a justice system like you just described. Where
there is for me, Liz. If I did that, I'd be playing a harmonica in the Stony Lonesome.
But you're just a filthy casual. You're not in the elite class of
that's true.
Certain select people. But everybody else has a different set of rules that they have to follow, and they're held to account. Like you as a lawyer, maybe you'd be disbarred. Seems like a serious offense to try and trick a judge.
Well, federal judges take offense at things like that. I just, people come to me, Liz Sheld of American Greatness, and they say, Kurt, what is your legal opinion of these various things like the Hunter plea deal and the charges against Donald Trump? And I'm like, why are you asking me? This has nothing to do with law.
Right, exactly. I think that's true. I mean, how crazy is it to have the Hunter Biden law firm call the court and pretend to be the House, the Congress, a congressional committee, to have a pleading, like a amicus brief yanked out of the public? Didn't that happen?
Well, yes. And step one, you don't call the clerk to get something taken off the docket. It's not up to the lawyers what's on the docket. What's on the docket is on the docket. And then to pretend to be somebody else and nothing's happened. If I was going to court, called to court for that, I'd bring my toothbrush.
Yeah, it's. I would think that would be a real problem, and really
it ain't for them.
Gutsy. It's so gutsy. You have to really wonder what is the mindset of somebody who is gutsy enough to do that, to do something like that. You would certainly never dare to do something like that. So,
it would never occur to me to do that. And they do it because they know there's no consequences. They do it because they can. And, Liz Sheld, I think it's not. Look, you and I are based. We know what time it is, so we don't do the why. Imagine if it was a Trump child doing this, because we accept the hypocrisy as part of the battle space. This is about showing that they're in charge, showing us our place and rubbing our faces in it.
Yes, I think that's right. It's like when you're punishing a dog for going to the bathroom in the house, I guess. Not Joe Biden's dog.
No, not Joe Biden's dog. They leave their, spoor everywhere.
But, you go and show, some people train their dogs and show them you've just made a mess inside the house or, smearing your face in it. That's what's happening right now, which is so extreme. And everybody's kind of helpless, because we do still have to follow the rules.
Well, look, I think our culture is still running on default. People like you and me, we're based. We know what time it is. We get it. We understand the situation. But normal people are out there going, wait, I thought we had a system of laws. I watched Schoolhouse Rock and, how a bill becomes a law. And I thought, I thought we had an America where, you go to court and everybody's equal. And normal people default to that, and it takes time for them to realize it's all a freaking lie.
I do think it's changing. I think there's been some recent poll numbers that show a majority of people do think that Hunter was influence peddling. The question is, do they care? Because a lot of people, especially because things are so partisanized now, they're fine as long as it's their people doing it. You know,
well, you've got. I mean,
where are all the advocacy groups that talk? You know, that talk about equal justice. You know, where's Wesley Snipes and lawyers, right, about this baby tax plea that Hunter got away with for his tax evasion? I mean, there are people in jail for the gun crimes that Hunter is accused of doing. Where are all the people that talk about our gun grabbers?
Well, they don't care.
Talking?
No, they're okay with it. They're okay with having a human rutabaga like John Fetterman. They are okay. You know, it's like, well, Joe Biden may have taken millions of dollars from foreign governments to influence American governmental policy, but you know, Donald Trump called Rosie McDonald horseface. So you know, weighing those, I'm going to go with the bribe guy.
No, they have been so acclimated to thinking Trump is a Nazi that literally everything's on the table to get rid of him.
Well, so, the Trump exception to all the rules has been unbelievably damaging. There are millions of us and more every day who are, becoming very, very cynical. And I don't know how we come back with this until there's accountability. And we only got about 30 seconds left, Liz Sheld of American Greatness.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I think people are waiting to see accountability, and that accountability is more than just congressional hearings, right? I mean, it's great we have the hearings, and we found out all these horrible things that have been going on, and all the lies that we've been told, and all the lies the media has helped spread, and then nothing. And then everybody just goes home.
Yeah. Look, I spent 27 years in uniform defending this country, and sometimes I feel like a sap. This is Rollin' Thunder, a.k.a. Kurt Schlichter, guest hosting for the great Hugh Hewitt. We'll be right back with David Drucker. Don't let the music fool you. This is Kurt Schlichter, a.k.a. Rollin' Thunder, your conservative meteorologist here today, guest hosting on the great Hugh Hewitt radio program. And I am joined by a very puzzled David Drucker, senior political reporter at The Dispatch. Hi, David. How's the weather where you are?
Well, it's a lot better than it was last week, but summer in D.C. is never something you want to experience. Especially if I'm from your neck of the woods, right? So I hate summer, but it's much better than last week.
Well, look, you guys have about 100% chance of 100% humidity. What do you think the chances are of impeachment following Devon Archer's testimony and all the other stuff that's come out about our massively corrupt alleged president?
Well, listen, given where House Republicans were before Archer's testimony, it certainly didn't go down. I think one of the things Republicans have to figure out, though, given they have a 4-seat majority, is whether or not they're going to have the votes, not necessarily for an impeachment inquiry, because I don't think that's an issue. And I'm not even sure it's an issue procedurally. You think I'd remember from a few years back, but it's slipping my mind. But if they actually want to move ahead with an impeachment vote at some point, do they have the votes? I'm not convinced they're there yet. But clearly, as they gather information, if it begins to turn into something all similar to what we saw yesterday, even though there are things Democrats that are pointing out, so that this isn't a slam dunk open and shut case, this becomes easier for them to unify behind.
Well, look, I've only been a lawyer for 30 years, but I'm kind of wondering, what's the argument that this isn't an open and shut slam dunk case?
Well,
I'm confused.
Well, I leave all of that stuff up to the lawyers and
well, what's their argument?
And opinionists. Their argument, as Mr. Archer said, is that there was no bribery, as has been alleged, and that that he was present in conversations, but didn't really offer much of substance or do much. Now, obviously, Kurt, we know the substance, looking at it from the other vantage point, is that he was the lure, and participating as the lure is what makes this so problematic. But, we've seen these arguments before, and usually when you're on one side of the political aisle, you look at all of the reasons why it's not a big deal. You're the other side, you look at all the reasons why it is. I think if Republicans had a 20-seat majority, then I could tell you that I'm sure they'll have the votes for impeachment if and when they get there. All I was saying was, when you're running for re-election in a Biden district or running for re-election in a very competitive district, and you're thinking about a general election, it's not always an open and shut case. And don't forget, some of the best approval numbers Donald Trump ever enjoyed as president was during his impeachment trial in the Senate, when people said, yeah, we think he's a bad guy. I don't know that I like him all that much, but let him be president. I don't know why we have to go through this impeachment mess. And so it's just a lot more politically complicated, I think, than and I'm not directing this at you, but just looking at talking about voters, it's a lot more politically complicated than partisans like to think it is when they have a fixed picture in their mind of, what a politician that they don't like might have done.
Well, David Drucker, are there any Democrats out there who, I don't know, find it disturbing that you have a president of the United States working with his meth-addled scumbag son who's about to plead guilty to a couple misdemeanors in a deal that you or I or any other human being would never get from the Department of Justice, to get money from foreigners, and apparently took in millions and millions of dollars? Are there any Democrats out there going, not optimal?
Well, I'm sure just about every Democrat I might talk to, if I talk to them privately and off the record, would tell me they prefer the whole thing didn't exist. But what that means for how they talk publicly, listen, Kurt, I have been talking to elected Republicans and Republican activists for 8 years that privately tell me how much Donald Trump frustrates them. But publicly, they're like, what? There's nothing to see here. I think Democrats are just, persecuting the guy. And I think that we're going to see a lot of that potentially from Democrats who will privately say, listen, one of the great parts of Joe Biden politically was he was a good guy, he was an honest guy, and now
when did the honest guy start? Things start. Well, this guy has been lying since day one. Look, here's my thing. Donald Trump calls Rosie McDonald horseface. Joe Biden helps his scumbag son take millions and millions of dollars for foreigners to influence American policy. We only have about 15 seconds. Are there any Democrats who kind of see a difference?
No, and they look at it differently, and I don't have enough time to tell you how they look at it, but there is half the country
I wish you did.
And lots of base Democrats who think Donald Trump should have already been in jail, and that's why they're mad at Merrick Garland, not for the reasons Republicans are mad at Merrick Garland.
Well, thank you, David Drucker, senior political reporter at The Dispatch. You can follow him at David M. Drucker on Twitter or X or whatever the hell it is. I'm Kurt Schlichter, a.k.a. Rollin' Thunder, and we're talking weather today on the Hugh Hewitt radio program. Stick around.
This hour of Hugh Hewitt starts right now on Salem News Channel.
Hey, this is Kurt Schlichter. I'm guest hosting for the great Hugh Hewitt today, and we're going to be talking about the weather. Hey, what is Joe Biden, a meteorologist? We've got some great guests, including Congressman Jim Banks, and of course a bunch of regulars. So stick around for the Hugh Hewitt Show.
You won't want to miss a minute. This hour of Hugh Hewitt is on Salem News Channel. Portions of the following program may contain pre-recorded material.
Morning glory, America. Bonjour. Hi, Canada. I'm Hugh Hewitt. I'm not there today. I'm burdened with 5 grandchildren. Not burdened. I'm enjoying. I'm loving my 5 grandchildren. So Colonel Kurt has marched into the front line to take over and relieve. Nothing like a retrograde maneuver like I'm conducting today. Take it away, Colonel Kurt, and explain why MacArthur was a genius and why the Marines hate him. Thank you, Kurt.
Thank you, Hugh Hewitt. I am Kurt Schlichter, but today, in honor of Daniel Goldman's explanation about our alleged president's telephone conversations with a variety of foreign oligarchs, dirtbags, and criminals, that he was just on the line talking about the weather. I am adopting a meteorologist name. I will now be known as Rollin' Thunder. That's Rollin' Thunder here on the Hugh Hewitt radio program. We are joined by one of my favorite guests when I guest host for the great Hugh Hewitt, Byron York, Washington Examiner's chief political correspondent. Byron, what the hell is going on here?
I've never been a political consultant. Just want to clarify.
Oh, my gosh. I've insulted you grievously. Please accept my sincere apologies, as sincere as a Los Angeles trial lawyer can be.
It's a very sketchy business, but lawyering is even sketchier.
Well, we found that's true.
Well, I thought it was going to be very interesting how Democrats responded to this Devon Archer testimony. And they responded in creative ways to the Devon Archer testimony. The first thing they did was they completely surrendered on the fact that Joe Biden, on a number of occasions, it's thought to be about 20, actually talked to and sometimes met with physically Hunter Biden's shady foreign business associates. And the story about Hunter Biden being in, Dubai or China or somewhere with his shady business associates, and then calling his father the vice president and putting him on speakerphone, that was true. So they conceded all that, but the fallback position was, well, they didn't talk about anything important. They talked about the weather, they exchanged pleasantries, and so.
Well, Byron York, I want to read
what
you.
Devon Archer said.
Before we go, I want to read you a new headline from the New York Times. You're going to love this. Just today, the headline is Biden spoke with Hunter Biden's associates repeatedly, Devon Archer. It has long been known that the elder Mr. Biden at times interacted with his son's business partners. Has that been long known? That's been long known by us. I didn't know the New York Times knew it.
It has not been long known by people who read the New York Times, for whom the New York Times is the only source of news. If the New York Times were your only source of news, you would not have known that. So this is an enormous fallback on the part of Democrats. But they're still, and I believe that Devon Archer, we haven't seen the transcript yet, but I think Devon Archer did say, well, they just exchanged pleasantries. They didn't really talk about anything substantive. They didn't talk about the balance sheet of this business or that business. So that's the fallback position. Actually, the best thing in the New York Times was they quoted Democrats who said that according to Devon Archer, Joe Biden was definitely not, repeat, not selling access to his father, the vice president. He was selling the illusion of access to his father, the vice president. So that when you're the Chinese businessman and you're talking to Vice President Joe Biden and you think, wow, I've got access to the Vice President of the United States, and it only cost me a few $1 million to give to his son. You weren't getting access. You were getting the illusion of access.
So it's pretty much, it depends on what the definition of access is. Is that where we're at now?
Well, I do think we have to thank Bill Clinton for an enduring image, which is it depends on what the definition of this particular word is.
Wow.
Well, there's no doubt, and also you have to remember, I do think that when you are selling access, or you're selling yourself if you're the public official. I mean, you don't actually in your conversation talk about the nuts and bolts of some business. You may actually exchange pleasantries, because what Hunter Biden is showing these people is that my father's on board with me. He's the vice president of the United States. I can produce him when I need to produce him. So Joe Biden doesn't have to talk about the particulars of the business.
Are you saying,
to show the money guys that you've got access to the vice president?
Byron York, are you saying that Joe Biden doesn't have to do the Ernst Stavros Blofeld Bond villain thing where he carefully explains the entire plan?
Yes. Now we're going to conduct a corrupt business deal, and a high-ranking U.S. official will commit bribery. No, you don't actually say that. So I think that Devin Archer may, and we have to see the transcript, but maybe he was accurately describing some of these conversations. But there's absolutely no doubt that Hunter Biden was selling access and that Joe Biden was in on it, because you have to remember the whole thing here is that Joe Biden denied any of this. He denied ever having spoken to his son about his son's business. He denied that his family ever got any money from China, and and Hunter Biden was getting millions from China. And by the way, the New York Times actually gave in on that one too, and said that this showed that Biden had been making false and misleading statements about his son's business, which is another kind of shock with your morning coffee if you're a person who only gets news from the New York Times.
Byron York, is there anyone in the Democrat Party who is willing to publicly say, it's probably not optimal to have a vice president who's currently allegedly the president taking millions of dollars from foreign oligarchs? Anybody out there, holding that radical position?
Nah, I don't think so. Well, look, they may hold it in private. I think David Drucker was alluding to that earlier. They may hold it in private. They're not going to come out in public and say it. As a matter of fact, this is kind of New York Times day. They released some results of their polls of Democrats, and Joe Biden seems to be solidifying his position with Democrats. Is actually in a better electoral position with his own party than he was last year when large majorities were saying they wanted somebody else to be the presidential nominee. So, look, the party has cast its lot with Joe Biden, and I think absent some major development, health emergency, something, he's their guy.
Well, there's a lot of speculation, Byron York, that they're going to pull this guy out because he's, Hugh uses the word infirm. I use harsher language. He's clearly not capable of performing duties at any kind of reasonable level. There's a lot of speculation he's going to be pulled out, probably replaced with my own governor hairstyle Newsom. And what do you think? Do you think they're going to do that? Because that's something they did in a New Jersey Senate race one time.
No, I don't think they're going to. I don't think they're going to do that. It's unless Joe Biden himself agreed to do it. It's incredibly hard to displace a sitting president in his own party. And if Joe Biden does not want to leave the ticket, I don't think he's going to leave the ticket. As I said, absent some major event. You can't just say we're going to take you out off the ticket now, and we're going to replace you with Governor Newsom. You just can't do that. I mean, you can't do it with the vice president either, especially in this case, Kamala Harris, the first Democratic female vice president of color. I mean, there's no way the party's going to pull her off and say, you're just not polling all that well, and we're going to replace you with somebody else. You don't do that with the sitting president and the vice president.
Well, look, Kamala is polling on par with toe fungus right now. But, look, it's shaping up. On the Republican side, it looks like Donald Trump is right now in the lead. And we could have a replay of 2020. Who wins that?
Well, one thing that's interesting on the Republican side is that this new poll, the New York Times poll, showed that Trump was up by 37 points among Republicans over Ron DeSantis. I think it was 52 to 17 or something, 54 to 17. It was just a huge lead, and that's consistent with what else we've seen in the Real Clear Politics average of polls. And what has been interesting in the last few days is we've seen a spate of stories saying, nobody has ever come back from a deficit like
Byron
that.
York, we'll have to leave it there. Chief political correspondent of the Washington Examiner. I am Rolling Thunder, a.k.a. Kurt Schlichter. Stick around on the Hugh Hewitt radio program. We are back on the Hugh Hewitt radio program, your source for 3 hours a day of all meteorology, in honor of Representative Daniel Goldman, who explained that our alleged president was on the phone with the oligarchs, thieves, and scumbags that his drug-addicted son was canoodling with, and all they were doing was talking about the weather. I used to be known as Kurt Schlichter. Now, in honor of this revelation from Devin Archer's testimony, I'm now known as Rollin' Thunder, your conservative meteorologist. So we got that going. And I got my Ukrainian mace here, which I brought for Hugh Hewitt. I got this when I was training soldiers in Ukraine. One of my many talents, besides being a trial lawyer.
Ukrainian rain stick?
Ukrainian rain stick. Thunder stick! My Ukrainian thunder stick! I am Rollin' Thunder. Or in Ukrainian, it's Rollin' Thunderski.
Yes.
Which a lot of people don't know. So I got that going for me. You know what else I got going? I got to ask you guys to help. Okay? Every time I come here, it seems that we're doing a campaign to help people. But, you know, we need to. We need to help out people who are less fortunate than us. Hurricane season is coming, and that means there's going to be a disruption of food supplies, housing, lack of clean water, all through the Caribbean and Latin America. Who goes and fixes that when it all goes to hell? It's the folks from Food for the Poor. Food for the Poor, one of the most respected charities out there. We're in the middle of the Salem campaign for it. Hugh has asked me to ask you to dig deep and give. Now, how do you do it? You go to HughHewitt.com. Right there, he's got a little banner. You hit the banner at HughHewitt.com, and you give your money. I've given money. You can give some money. You know, it takes only $4,900, thanks to a generous matching gift, to build a new home for someone who's lost it. It's a little money out of your pocket. The results are priceless. Go to HughHewitt.com, click on the emergency relief supplies banner. You can text Hugh 91999, or you can even phone in your gift 855-359-4673. Help you, help the poorest of the poor right here in our own hemisphere with a gift today for Food for the Poor. Now, one of the things I always look forward to when I come and guest host for Hugh Hewitt, besides adopting a new moniker like Rollin' Thunder, is seeing just how small producer Dwayne has become. And you're positively svelte.
I am. My weight has gotten about as low as a Kamala Harris approval poll.
Oh, bazing! She's been telling us that she's very popular.
She says there are some polls that show she's very high in approval.
There are social diseases that are more popular.
There are literally no polls that show that. But anyway, I lost 50 pounds about a year ago and have kept it off. I actually started the program almost exactly a year ago. It was like the second week of August. And it took me about 12 weeks to lose 50 pounds, and I have, within 4 or 5 pounds, I've maintained it for a year.
Has it been hard?
No. I'll tell you what the hardest part is, dealing with Hugh every day. But outside of that...
He's wonderful. What's wrong with Hugh Hewitt? He's the nicest guy ever.
He tempts me. He torments me. He likes to give me grief when I've maybe gained a half a pound.
You know, you guys run a very tight ship here. There are no snacks here. I once brought donuts. I haven't done that since you lost your weight. The only thing that you guys, whenever I come here, though, you have a pot of coffee, and I don't think any of you guys drink coffee.
No. I think Harley might, but no. We only do the coffee for you.
You do the coffee, and I go through, about 18 cups?
Something like that,
And when I'm not sitting here, I'm running to the bathroom.
Exactly.
Because I have a bladder the size of Kamala Harris's popularity.
Exactly.
It's very small.
864-644-1900 is how to go to myphdweightloss.com.
I got to tell you, it works.
It does work.
It does work because you're a mere slip of a producer.
864-644-1900 is how you get more information from myphdweightloss.com.
Well, look, hey, the facts are facts. It works. And the fact is, I am Kurt Schlichter, a.k.a. Rollin' Thunder. This is the Hugh Hewitt Show, and we will be right back with more stuff. Stick around.
Don't go anywhere. Kurt Schlichter will be right back. But this is Hugh Hewitt coming in from the ether to remind you that ReliefFactor.com, he's in the ReliefFactor.com studio, but he's probably forgotten to tell you that. And he's kind of out of shape. And so if he gets out there and starts doing his laps again, Kurt Schlichter is going to need ReliefFactor.com, as you do. Every single day, take those supplements. Icarian, curcumin, resveratrol, and omega. I remind you 3 times a day. It's my morning reminder to you that if you've already got your wonderful North Carolina blue and hemmed in green bag with the beautifully designed packages, well, inside of the packages, what you need more than anything else, Icarian and curcumin, omega, and resveratrol, the 4 natural supplements that make it possible for you to have temporary relief from the minor aches and pains that dog people who age and exercise. And you're definitely getting older. And even if you're a triathlete, you need ReliefFactor.com. Join the tens of thousands of people who I hope include Kurt Schlichter and get ReliefFactor.com. Then come right back for more of Kurt on the other side of this on the Hugh Hewitt Show.
Portions of the Hugh Hewitt Show are brought to you in part by PhD Weight Loss and Nutrition. Go to myphdweightloss.com to learn more.
Oh, nothing like the Scorps to start off another segment on the Hugh Hewitt radio program. I used to be Kurt Schlichter. Today, in honor of our meteorological theme in the wake of Devin Archer's testimony, where he testified, according to Representative Daniel Goldman, that Joe Biden was just talking about the weather, I will now be known henceforth as Rollin' Thunder. That's Rollin' Thunder here on the Hugh Hewitt radio program. Time to get serious. Time to do something that we do a lot here on Hugh Hewitt. The action right now, the conservative action in America, is not the federal level. Okay, with Joe Biden up there when he's not taking 10%, he's screwing everything up. The real action is out in the states. And there is no state where things are happening like the state of Florida. So I thought we'd bring on J. Alex Kelly, Florida's Secretary of Commerce. Secretary Kelly, welcome to the Hugh Hewitt radio program.
Good morning. Good morning. Good to be with you, Mr. Rolling Thunder.
Goodness gracious. I happen to be a California trial lawyer who was looking at property in Florida recently, and I know you love Californians coming out there. I gotta say, not a very convincing argument by the left. In any case, give us a little of your background real quick.
Sure. I just became Secretary of Commerce June 12th. Governor appointed me. Prior to that, I worked for the governor in his office as a deputy chief of staff. I, for a long time, have overseen actually education. In the last few years, integrated into that economic development. There's a kind of a learners to earners feel of education and economic development. So it was a nice portfolio to work on. I worked with our State Department of Education, our state, what was formerly known as our Department of Economic Opportunity and Enterprise Florida. My department now, actually, the Department of Commerce, is now actually the combination of a few agencies that have been consolidated. So we're sort of shrinking government and kind of getting leaner, meaner, and trying to get a little more closer to the ground of supporting both employers and employees, and trying to get the services that we provide a little more accessible and a little easier for Floridians to understand.
Well, Secretary Kelly, I'm here in California. I've lived here, all my life when I wasn't deployed. And my state is going down the toilet. Why is Florida succeeding? Because when I was there, I felt an energy there that I don't feel here. And that, combined with the giant iguanas everywhere, made me think, wow, this is a place I want to be. And apparently everybody wants to be there.
I think it's true. We're leading the nation right now in net immigration from other states. So that's clearly a good sign. And I think it's similar to, I think it's really the answers a lot in what the governor said yesterday in one of his announcements, where he essentially said he's declaring our independence. And I think in many respects, since 2019, since the governor was first elected, the state has basically beat to its own drum in terms of building its economy, building opportunity for young and old alike in its own way. A lot of that began through great education, building our education system, and then building on that for great workforce education. The state's made $6.8 billion in investments in workforce education, and that's opportunity for anybody to succeed in our economy. We've had a very significant small business focus. That's innovation. That's future opportunity for young entrepreneurs, folks who want to go into the economy and make for their own and become their own boss. We've had a significant investment there, a significant investment in our infrastructure, our roads, our ports, our seaports, airports, and the like, all of which are economic drivers. And we've done this in a way where we've said we're not going to live by the rules of Washington, D.C. and how they dictate and mandate how that different funding and different programs get utilized. Oftentimes, for myself, I'm on the front line of reviewing whatever it is that Washington, D.C. has passed down. Previously, in my old job doing education, now in this job in an economic development role, and looking at the things that D.C., the Biden administration, and I'm sure it's similar to what you've seen in California, try to hamstring business and industry. So we're always looking to say we have to grow. You can only grow by giving people freedom, less bureaucracy, give them opportunity, give them the resources they need to succeed. And it really is about individual employees, the workforce. It is about small business. It's not about large corporations. It's not about cash give-outs to large corporations. It's about creating ecosystems of research and development that, by their nature, because we have a talented workforce, because we have great infrastructure, because we're constantly focused on these things, then and that way employers just want to move to us, and they want to grow here because they can see that they're going to be supported and stable for the next 30 to 40 years. The governor's just absolutely solidified a stable economic environment. We don't have the economic policies of DC that are driven by social policy rather than true economic policy, and that creates predictability for companies. That creates predictability for the workforce. And I think we're doing the right thing by people who want to make their own decisions in their own household about what's right for them.
Well, Secretary Kelly, look, I own a law firm, and it's making me a parasite of human misery. But if I owned a company that actually provided some sort of social benefit instead of a massive, massive detriment, and I was interested in coming to Florida with 50 to 100 folks, what kind of would I be greeted? Would I be ignored? How would you? What would be the process for the state to deal with that?
Well, let me say, we don't pick winners and losers when it comes to dealing with any company. And at the end of the day, that's your company. That's how you choose to run your company. We're going to always have open doors, open arms, and greet any company. And it's a team effort in Florida. We work with our local economic development partners throughout the state. We work with financial investors. We work with the pipelines of the universities and colleges that provide the talent to those companies. So we don't ever try to pick a winner or a loser for a company who's coming to the state, regardless of their background. Our value is giving Floridians a great opportunity, because that company, at the end of the day, is still going to probably hire a bunch of Floridians, and they're going to contribute to our workforce, and they're going to see what a great state this is to live in. You saw, when the governor was reelected, he was reelected by 20 percentage points, which is a massive, massive historic achievement in the state of Florida, which is, on the surface, a pretty purple state. The governor was elected by 20 percentage points, which means there were a lot of people of all political dispositions who were employed and saw the value that this governor's focused on, this state is focused on getting employees and employers opportunity. And it's not a political thing. It's about giving people the freedom to find a great job, find job training if they need it, and start a business if they want to too.
Well, Secretary Kelly, you mentioned earlier, you've mentioned the governor and the way he's kind of set the tone. You worked for the governor as a deputy chief of staff. I'm a military guy, and every time I see him talk, I keep hearing him say commander's intent, which as a colonel makes me pop right up, because that shows leadership and guidance. How was it working, or how is it working for Governor Ron DeSantis? And what kind of things? In what way does he empower you to do your job?
It's a lot of fun. He really moves urgently, and he empowers us to come up with solutions and to work on solutions that can actually be implemented, can be implemented with fidelity. He sits in the room with us. He's a policy wonk. He gets into the details. He likes the details of, okay, so we've proposed an idea, we've passed a bill, here it is. Now what is it actually going to take to urgently get this to fruition so that real people can see the tangible results? That's constantly in a meeting with him, in a dialogue with him. It is, okay, how do we actually get this policy idea? So we've done what most people think might be the hard work, but really the hard work is implementation, implementing with fidelity, seeing it through, making sure 6 months from now, a year from now, 2 years from now, Floridians actually got what we said we were going to do. He is someone who is consistently, he's the rare politician who has consistently made promises, followed through with them, delivered, and then continues to follow up on them.
Well, Secretary Kelly, the Commerce Secretary of the great state of Florida, land of the frozen iguanas, it looks to me like a lot of the conservative states, the states that are red and are being run as red, are coming up with a bunch of great ideas, each in their own way, because each is uniquely situated. Florida is different than Iowa, which is different than Texas. But do you coordinate with other commerce secretaries in other red states for best practices, good ideas, and other ways of figuring out the best way to implement a conservative vision?
We do, and I will say more often than not, we get calls from other states, and this was true even in my former role overseeing and working on education, where normally we're getting calls from other states saying, well, how did you do that? I think a lot of what we've done, you're right, I don't disagree. Every state has its unique situations to it. But in general, I think most of what we've done is actually a blueprint for the nation. We're normally getting a call from another state saying, okay, so how exactly did you create that pipeline? How exactly did you invest? I'll give you just an example, just to give you a concrete example. Our credentialing process in Florida, evaluating supply, demand, what industries need investment from a workforce perspective into our colleges, into our universities, into our talent pipelines. It's a very detailed scientific process. We're looking at hard data, supply and demand, and really evaluating then from a state level where we make those investments. That's in our education system, in my department of Commerce. And that's a policy where we're getting calls every day from around the country saying, well, how exactly did you do that? What were the steps? And we believe that blueprint, every state, again, has its nuances, but we believe that blueprint in many respects, great infrastructure, great workforce development, low tax burden, low regulatory burden, all those things can be done anywhere. Those things aren't things that somehow are precluded in certain places.
Secretary Kelly, there's really kind of three general categories of industry. You've got white collar, you've got manufacturing and other blue collar jobs, and then you've got agriculture. We got about 15, 20 seconds. How do you balance those out?
I think really for me, for us, we're really about telling the Florida story as a special story. A lot of it is about aerospace, aviation, military and defense, and agriculture are kind of tied depending on what day and how you ask the question in terms of our number two industries here. FinTech, biomedical tech, all of these are emerging and strong industries in Florida. And it's about making targeted investments. And it's really about getting into the details, making scientific targeted investments to support workforce R&D, and ultimately the people who want to work in these fields.
Well, Secretary J. Alex Kelly, Commerce Secretary of the great state of Florida, thank you for joining us on the Hugh Hewitt radio program. I'm Kurt Schlichter, a.k.a. Rollin' Thunder. I'll be right back.
Portions of the Hugh Hewitt Show are brought to you by Regnery's Life After Capitalism, now on sale from Regnery Publishing.
Welcome back to the Hugh Hewitt program. I'm guest host Kurt Schlichter, a.k.a. Rollin' Thunder, because we're on the meteorological tip. Thanks to Devin Archer's testimony about Joe Biden. Apparently all Joe was talking about was the weather, and somehow he got millions of dollars. So that's a thing that's real and not a complete scam, lie, and betrayal of everything that we hope a president would believe in. Hey, if you're enjoying me now, I'm coming to Dallas. I'm coming to Dallas to speak on Thursday, August 3rd at 7 p.m. at the Golden Corridor Republican Women's. Well, it's actually Allen, Texas. But Texas is just, it's all Dallas to me because I'm a Yankee from California. But go to www.gcrw.org events. You can sign up. It's free. Come out and see us in Allen, Texas this Thursday, August 3rd at 7 p.m. All you listeners on 660 a.m., I'm going to step into Mark Davis's territory. Now, I always enjoy when we have Bethany Mandel join us here on the Hugh Hewitt radio program. Bethany, you're the mother of about 48 children. I'd like to ask you a parenting question. How do you keep your children from growing up to be Hunter Biden?
So jury's still out, actually. My oldest is 10. So really, we'll find out, I guess, in 15 years or so. But in all seriousness, I wrote a column about this for Newsweek, I don't know, a week or two ago, back when he only had 6 grandchildren. And now magically one has appeared out of thin air, and now he has 7. And
it's amazing.
I love the immediate gaslighting. He's like, I always said there were 7. Of course there are 7. We're like, you had a stocking hanging from your mantle for the dog, but not that child last Christmas. We all remember that. There are photos.
And that would be the dog that attacks everybody, but that's...
Yes,
you know.
Right.
He can't even raise a dog right.
2 dogs. He's had 2 dogs do this.
Yeah, he's 400 years old. He's 400 years old. He gets a German Shepherd, right? Dog attacks everybody because he's a German Shepherd and needs, people who can actually move. He gets rid of that dog, and then gets the exact same kind of dog who does the exact same thing again.
Now you're a trainer, but so this is the problem with his parenting. Everyone has always talked about what an amazing dad Joe Biden is.
I'm amazed.
He was dealt some really tough cards. Let's acknowledge that fact. But his parenting might not be the best, and we're seeing that play out in the fact that, he aided and abetted his son's denial and just complete garbage treatment of his toddler daughter her entire life. She's 4 years old. She's never met her father or her grandfather. Joe Biden helped Hunter do this to his child. And so, how do you raise a child that doesn't become Hunter Biden? You don't just let him do whatever he wants. The same with the dog. You don't let them do whatever they want. And this is the problem with modern parenting, honestly. Everyone just lets their children walk all over them and do whatever they want and live their truth and gentle parenting nonsense. And then you get Hunter Biden.
Yeah, I mean, do you think anyone has ever told Hunter Biden no?
No. I mean, the guy sold a painting that my 10-year-old could do better for $1 million. The hubris involved in selling paintings for that amount of money. And he's rewarded every turn that he takes. He's like, well, I sold that painting for $1 million. Oh, China gave me $1 billion. He's never been told no. And he's never had the world tell him no either.
My favorite thing is watching the Democrats stagger out and try to defend this guy. It's just a conversation about the weather. Yeah, that's right. Why do you hate a father who's just trying to help his addicted son?
Well, on CNN, Kyle Jennings the other day was fantastic. And
yes,
he
when
he said anything about Hunter Biden, the host was like, well, how could you talk about someone with addiction like this? I'm like, I'm sorry. I didn't realize that being an addict gives you carte blanche to be a total monster towards a 4-year-old. If that's the case, then let's just throw out all child protective laws, because apparently an adult with an addiction trumps a child.
Well, it does in the Democrat hierarchy of value, certainly. you look at this guy who's too dumb to even, clear his browser history. The guy who says, I got a picture of myself with a Latavian hooker. I think I'm going to save that memory here on my hard drive. And he forgets the hard drive.
Yes.
Would you say Hunter? We got about 30 seconds. Would you say Hunter Biden is kind of emblematic of everything that's wrong with liberal child raising?
Yes, and thank you for that piece idea. As soon as I'm done with what I'm working on, I will pitch that. Thank you, Kurt Schlichter.
Well,
that's exactly right.
Well, you have a number of great books out there. Why don't you tell us all about them?
Yeah, so I have a Substack called Write Books for Kids, where I talk about children's books and quality books that won't turn your child into Hunter Biden. And I co-wrote a book with Carol Markowitz called Stolen Youth about how the woke assault on childhood. And it came out in March. It was a bestseller and still super relevant.
Well, Irina has actually bought that book. I haven't had a chance to read it yet, but I will. Bethany Mandel, thank you. I'm sorry that we didn't meet your well-behaved dog. I am Kurt Schlichter, a.k.a. Rollin' Thunder, here on the Hugh Hewitt Show. We've got another hour of insanity to come, so please stick around.
This hour of Hugh Hewitt starts right now on Salem News Channel.
Hey, this is Kurt Schlichter. I'm guest hosting for the great Hugh Hewitt today, and we're going to be talking about the weather. Hey, what is Joe Biden, a meteorologist? We've got some great guests, including Congressman Jim Banks, and, of course, a bunch of regulars. So stick around for the Hugh Hewitt Show.
You won't want to miss a minute. This hour of Hugh Hewitt is on Salem News Channel. Portions of the following program may contain pre-recorded material.
Morning glory, America. Bonjour. Hi, Canada. I'm Hugh Hewitt. I'm not there today. I'm burdened with 5 grandchildren. Not burdened. I'm enjoying. I'm loving my 5 grandchildren. So Colonel Kurt has marched into the front line to take over and relieve. Nothing like a retrograde maneuver like I'm conducting today. Take it away, Colonel Kurt, and explain why MacArthur was a genius and why the Marines hate him. Thank you, Kurt.
Well, thank you, Hugh Hewitt. I am Kurt Schlichter, noted Los Angeles trial lawyer, retired Army colonel, senior columnist at townhall.com, author of the Kelly Turnbull series of conservative action novels, and, of course, of We'll Be Back, Fall and Rise of America. In honor of the meteorological theme today, based on Devin Archer's testimony and the Democrat construction of it as Joe Biden just getting on the phone to talk about the weather, I am going to be a meteorologist for you. You may now know me as Rollin' Thunder. That would be Rollin' Thunder, right, producer Dwayne? Absolutely.
Oh, I think I finally came up with my name.
You came up with your name? What's that?
Yeah, my name. I for the rest of the show, I want to be known as Foggy Banks.
Foggy Banks. Rollin' Thunder and Foggy Banks. That sounds like a country duo.
Yeah.
All right, on a break, we'll compose a song about our dog and our truck. But first, I'd like to bring on board the Federalist's own Mollie Hemingway. Hi, Mollie. How's the weather where you are?
It's great, and I love to talk about nothing but the weather.
Oh, well. And get $5 million for it.
Yeah, I think that this was a very plausible story that was told by Democrats yesterday, that our president has a secret passion for meteorology that he only discloses with people who happen to be business associates of his son when they're having phone calls and meetings. I find it completely believable. I don't know about you.
Well, look, before my dad passed to his reward, whenever I was closing a large deal as a Los Angeles trial lawyer, I would call Dad up, ask how the weather was in Redondo Beach, check it. Sometimes he'd throw in about how the zucchini were growing. I know I did that. That's a real thing that occurred in real life. Mollie, I'd like to ask you, because I know the Federalist approached this yesterday. Now that we have 7 grandchildren, where is Navy not Biden's shell company? Because, I mean, she's got to get paid too, right?
Well, clearly, President Biden and his wife said that they are willing to acknowledge the reality that they have 7 grandchildren. But I think if that's really true, that they are truly acknowledging her, the 7th grandchild, that means that they will be filling her coffers with money from foreign oligarchs like every single other Biden family member allegedly has.
Well, I think we're getting past the allegedly part into the yeah, I know part. The New York Times actually kind of accepted the undeniable. It writes at the beginning of its articles yesterday, you're going to love this. It has long been known that the elder Mr. Biden at times interacted with his son's business partners. Do you think anybody who only reads the New York Times actually knew that the elder Mr. Biden at times interacted with his son's business partners? Because I don't think so.
Yeah, I thought it was a stunning line from the New York Times, whose readers have to be the most misinformed people on the planet. Not just the New York Times, but President Biden himself have denied that there were interactions with his son's business associates. Those denials took place, for instance, on national debate stages when Joe Biden said that it was, that he'd never had any interaction with his son's business associates. It was always implausible. It was something that never should have been bought. We've already had other business associates say that President Biden functioned as the chairman of the Biden company in that, sort of like in a family-led business, who's the boss. And the New York Times and other publications have said, well, there's no evidence that there's money going directly into Joe Biden's bank accounts. And it's like, well, that's not how this thing operates. It operates. The whole point is to show that you have access to Joe Biden and that you get deliverables that you pay for. And yesterday we learned precisely how those deliverables worked with the Burisma company.
Well, Mollie Hemingway of the Federalist, back in Washington, D.C., there's about 100% chance of heat wave. What do you think the percent chance is of an impeachment?
Yeah, I think it's getting extremely likely. And it'll be interesting because of the fact that the corporate media have not covered the story of the Biden family business. And now they're going to have to, assuming that either Merrick Garland or Joe Biden himself gets impeached or that evidence starts getting put out there. They're going to have to cover it, and they're going to have to start lying a lot more. They've been able to kind of ignore and move this away. And with impeachment for corruption of the type that was alleged yesterday in Congress about how Joe Biden personally intervened to get someone fired who was investigating the company that his son was on the board of, I mean, that's explosive. It's just absolutely, this is so beyond any president in the modern history of what we've had alleged about corruption.
Well, Mollie Hemingway, here's what I think is going to happen when he's impeached, because I don't think there's any way not to do it. When they have the impeachment trial, I think the regime media simply will not report the evidence. It simply will not do it. It'll it'll just, instead of reporting facts, it'll just have commentary like another day where the Republicans, produce nothing. And, of course, the Republicans are going to produce all sorts of stuff. I think we've kind of crossed a Rubicon of shamelessness here. I don't think I don't think they care at all about what they do, what they say, about the preserving the institutions. I think they're willing to burn it all down for short-term gain.
Well, Kurt, I think we crossed that Rubicon several years ago.
Well, yeah.
I was just reviewing media coverage of the first impeachment trial, which was about President Trump asking questions about this very same story that we now know is, completely true as told by Hunter Biden's best friend and business partner, Devin Archer. And the way that the Washington Post and Reuters and other corporate media wrote it up, they would say, Donald Trump made up a crazy story about Joe Biden's son being on the board of Burisma and getting money and, someone getting fired. And they would say, they would just assert that it was made up and it was all completely true. And it's just amazing. They would assert without evidence that it was made up. And they would just say that and they would print that. And I absolutely expect they will continue to do that.
I think in some ways we're still moving forward in a default mode where, look, based people like you and me who know what time it is, we expect the lies. We don't get upset. We don't, tear our hair out about the hypocrisy because we understand the hypocrisy is based in. Normal people, I don't think they do. And I think they still think, well, if there's something bad here, well, it's going to get reported. There's going to be justice. And when they see it doesn't happen again and again and again, I think there's going to be a embasoning of normal Americans. What kind of effect will we see down the road as people begin, regular people, not us crazy people who follow politics, as they see that everything they saw in Schoolhouse Rock is a lie?
Yeah, I do worry about this, actually. I think it's a very big threat to the republic that our elite leaders and institutions have done so much to make sure that people aren't held accountable for wrongdoing, that we have a weaponized Department of Justice and two rules of law, one for friends of the regime, one for opponents of the regime. It's the type of thing that could topple a great republic. And I feel like our leaders are playing with fire and they don't, I don't know if they don't realize it or they don't care, but it is extremely worrisome just how much our institutions are crumbling here.
Well, speaking of the Rubicon, the reason Caesar crossed it with a legion is because he understood that if he put down his proconsular command, he was going to be the victim of lawfare. And what I see is people use the power they have. The people with the institutions use the institutional power. The people fighting back, they're going to use their own kind of power. And I don't think that ends well. We got about 30 seconds, Mollie.
Well, it's very important, though, to understand that people do have power here that they can exercise in elections. A lot of this can be litigated through elections. And Americans should not give up hope given how many tens of millions of people do understand what time it is and what needs to be done. So I hope they will continue to work through proper means and channels to save our great republic.
Well, look, the answer to every question and every problem we as Americans have, I think, lies in our Constitution and in our real traditions and customs and norms. Unfortunately, they're taking a battering right now. It's up to us to enforce them. I'm Kurt Schlichter, a.k.a. Rollin' Thunder. This is the Hugh Hewitt Show. We've got a lot more to come, so stick around.
Portions of the Hugh Hewitt Show brought to you by Sierra Pacific Mortgage. For more info, call 888-888-1172.
We are back on the Hugh Hewitt radio program. I am Rolling Thunder, a.k.a. Kurt Schlichter, on this meteorologically themed guest host gig at Hugh Hewitt. Hey, before we go on, I want to get you guys on board with Food for the Poor. Food for the Poor does great work all through the Caribbean and Latin America, helping people, feeding people, and now hurricane season is coming. Folks, people need shelter. People need support. And this stuff has to be pre-positioned. That's why we're running this campaign. I want you to go to HughHewitt.com. I want you to click on the Emergency Relief Supplies banner. And I want you to give what you can. You know, thanks to matching gifts, $4,900 in donations will buy a new house for a family whose home is destroyed by hurricanes. It's important. This is something that, you know, we need to stand up and do. And I encourage you to go to HughHewitt.com, to click on the Emergency Relief Supplies banner, or even text Hugh to 91999. That's the word Hugh, 91999. You can phone in your order. If you don't like that high text stuff, you can phone it in. Give your generous gift at 855-359-4673. So help you, help the poorest of the poor right here in our own hemisphere with a gift today for Food for the Poor. And, you know, I'm going to be in beautiful Allen, Texas, within the range of 660 a.m., home of Mark Davis, sometimes guest host here on the Hugh Hewitt radio program. I don't know what his meteorological name is. But I'm going to be guest of the Golden Corridor Republican Women in Allen, Texas, this Thursday, August 3rd at 7 p.m. If you want tickets, they're free. So, you know, you're getting your money's worth. You can go to www.gcrw.org/events and sign up. Again, it's free. Come see me out in the great state of Texas. So, real fish out of water thing. Now, we're getting meteorological here because, of course, Joe Biden was only talking about the weather with those oligarchs who gave him millions of dollars. I'm here with my compatriot. I'm Rolling Thunder. This is
Foggy Banks.
Foggy Banks.
Yes.
That would be Foggy Banks.
No relation to our next guest.
Jim Banks.
Yes.
Who, I don't think he's foggy.
I don't think he's foggy.
You think he's a meteorologist?
I think he can predict a win in Indiana next year.
Oh, I think that's not hard.
Yeah, that's a lot easier than predicting the weather.
Yeah, I think Jim Banks is what's known as a mortal lock.
Yes, he and Jim Justice are two. Those are going to be two W's.
I think those are two W's. But you know, I'm excited about Ohio, my home state, much like Hugh. Although I was Cincinnati and he was somewhere else.
Ohio should be a pickup. I like our chances in Montana. We've got a former Navy or a retired Navy SEAL.
Yeah, but there's that other guy.
Who? Tester?
Rosedale.
Oh, he's not going to be a factor.
You don't think he's going to win the primary?
No, I don't think so at all.
Okay.
I don't think so at all. I think.
Well, look, we got to get Tester out of there.
Oh yeah. And I think
he's one of those homespun conservative guys at home, and he goes and votes like Nancy Pelosi the minute he gets inside the Beltway.
He doesn't predict the weather well.
He does not predict the weather. I'm predicting victory. I am Rolling Thunder. This is Foggy Banks. We will be right back on the Hugh Hewitt radio program.
While I'm traveling America, you may be looking yourself for a new home. You may be looking for someone to help you refinance your home. You may be doing any of a number of things that require the services of AndrewandTodd.com. That's AndrewandTodd.com. Great sponsors of the show. They have been for years. I talk about them almost every single day on the show because somewhere in America in this audience, someone is looking around trying to buy a house. Maybe you've just finished that process and you wish you'd used AndrewandTodd.com. And maybe you're one of the tens of thousands of people who have and say, boy, those guys were terrific. Their team was terrific. And they are. You call them at 888-888-1172. You go to AndrewandTodd.com. Answer a couple of questions online. They or one of their team will be right back to you with options and ideas. Whether you want to refinance, buy a second home, help your son or daughter, grandson or granddaughter get into a house by becoming a non-occupying co-borrower. Maybe you're a senior citizen who's paid off their house but now is stretched by inflation and you need a reverse mortgage. They are the specialists. AndrewandTodd.com or call 888-888-1172, 888-888-1172. Finally, let me remind you about ReliefFactor.com. ReliefFactor.com, you know, I never get tired. People say, do you get tired about pitching ReliefFactor.com? I don't. I take it every day. I don't pitch anything I don't use. And I do. I've never taken any other supplement. It's the only supplement that I take. The only supplement I've taken in 30 years of radio and television. 30 years. The only thing I've taken. Why? Because it works. Because I did the research. Because I know you need Icarian, curcumin, resveratrol, omega in the right amount. You can't take too much. If you take too little, it doesn't do anything for you. If you take the right amount, you can get rid of the aspirin. You get rid of the anti-inflammatories you take over the counter. You can avoid all those things that you shouldn't be taking too much of, especially NSAIDs, which I can't take any of. So, ReliefFactor.com, ReliefFactor.com. 1995 will join the tens of thousands of other ReliefFactor.com users to you. You become one of the smart people. ReliefFactor.com. Come right back for more Kurt Schlichter.
The Hugh Hewitt Show is now available on TV. Go to SalemNewsChannel.com or download the app. You can also watch on Roku and Fire Stick. Salem News Channel, the antidote to the mainstream media.
We are back on the Hugh Hewitt program. I am Kurt Schlichter. In honor of the meteorological theme of the day, thanks to the fact that Joe Biden was only talking to those oligarchs, criminals, and thugs about the weather, I have adopted a new name, Rollin' Thunder. So we're doing that. Anyway, I've got a great guest, one of my favorites when I guest host here on the Great Hugh Hewitt Show, Congressman Jim Banks. Congressman Banks, how is the weather out in the wilderness where you are right now?
It's great. We are up in northern Michigan. I'm on vacation with my wife and our 3 daughters, Kurt. So
that's got to be fun.
Being a girl dad with 14, 12, and 10-year-old girls on vacation. When you asked me to come on the show, I was happy to do it.
Well, look, I'm sure it's sunny up there with, a 30% chance of rain because you guys have weather outside of California. What do you think the percentage chance of an impeachment is in the wake of all these revelations?
Well, it should be 100%. I've been calling for it the last few weeks. Enough is enough. I mean, the facts are there. The case is made. Every day we learn something new about the pattern of corruption by the Biden cartel, the Biden family, the stuff that they've gotten away with for many years. And the testimony in the hearing yesterday just further proves it. I mean, as you've already discussed, the number of times that Joe Biden and Hunter Biden worked together to sell access to some of our biggest enemies around the world, oligarchs and thugs, as you put it. This man deserves to be impeached. His family is the most corrupt family ever to reside in the White House. That's saying a lot after the Clintons lived there in the 90s. So I believe it's time for House Republicans to move forward. I know Speaker McCarthy is talking about an impeachment inquiry and moving that forward. I'm ready to go the full way, impeach him. He deserves it. And the reason why, Kurt, just to sum this up, the reason why I believe we have a moral duty to impeach Joe Biden is to forecast to any future president that you can't get away with what these guys have gotten away with. If we don't impeach him, it invites more types of activities like this from presidents in the future. We can't open the door for that.
Well, Congressman Jim Banks of the great state of Indiana, unfortunately, it looks like they are getting away with it at the moment. Do you know of a single Democrat who is standing up publicly and saying, wait a minute, taking millions of dollars from thugs, criminals, and oligarchs when you're the vice president is probably suboptimal?
Yeah, of course not. You haven't heard a single Democrat speak out against it, like ever. I mean, it's not like this just all came to light yesterday in this hearing. I mean, we've known about the big guy skimming 10% off the top now for years. We've known about the activities of the Biden family prostituting Joe's office in the Senate as vice president. We can speculate as well while he's been in the White House. We know this has been going on for years, and not a single Democrat has spoken out against it. And that just tells you how crazy the Democrat Party is today, how corrupt they've all become by accepting the corruption of their own president, of their own party. And that's the shame of it. I on this show this morning, I call on any Democrat, a single Democrat, with some common sense to speak out against it. I'm not going to hold my breath.
Well, if you did, you'd be holding it quite a long time. Let's move on to something else that's very close to both of our hearts, which is the woke military. We both served, you in Afghanistan, me, Desert Storm, in Kosovo. And I got to tell you, I'm very, very worried about what's going on in our military, particularly the recruiting crisis. And then I see, fat trans people being put forward on Army Twitter accounts. I see drag queen story hour guys being used by Navy recruiters. And I'm thinking, are they aiming at pumping up the recruiting in San Francisco? Because the kind of people, the vast majority of the people that I served with are not going to be responsive to this kind of transgressive, bizarre stuff. What are these people thinking?
Well, the bad news is that in the 50th anniversary of an all-volunteer force, we have the worst recruitment crisis that we've ever had in our nation's military's history. So that's where we are today. I'm chairing the Military Personnel Subcommittee on the House Armed Services Committee. Chairman Mike Rogers from Alabama asked me to lead it to focus on exactly these issues. Also, a poll, you probably saw it, came out yesterday, said public trust and confidence in our military is at a 20-year low. But the worst part of it is if you look at the plummeting trajectory of that public confidence, it hasn't hit rock bottom. It's going to keep declining. And the reason why is because when you insert politics and a political agenda, especially a left-wing woke political agenda in our military, the public is going to lose confidence in it. And that's what we're seeing happen. Here's the good news. A couple of weeks ago, the House passed our version of the National Defense Authorization Act. And for the first time since I've been in Congress and for decades before I got to Congress, this was nearly a party line NDAA. That doesn't usually happen. Usually both sides try to work together to make it very bipartisan, but Republicans bonded together and we passed an NDAA with language that I inserted that allows service members who were separated because they didn't take the vaccine a pathway back into the service and not be punished for it. My colleague and friend Matt Gaetz from Florida got language into the NDAA to stop drag shows on military bases, something that I can't even believe that that's a thing. But we had to pass language to stop General Milley and this military from allowing that to happen. I got language into the bill that caps the pay of DEI bureaucrats. We found out that the Biden administration was paying DEI bureaucrats 5 times as much as privates on the front lines, over $140,000 a year that dozens of these bureaucrats were making. So we capped their pay at a very low amount. I got language inserted into the NDAA this year that says that no one can be promoted, assigned, selected, or accessions based on anything but merit. I mean, our military is built upon a meritocracy. You shouldn't be assigned to something because of the color of your skin or because of your sex or gender. It should be based on merit, and that's something that we have to preserve in our military. A lot more things that we did: stopped affirmative action at the military academies, stopped CRT from being taught at the academies as well. It's a really strong anti-woke NDAA that came out of the House. Now the hard part starts in trying to negotiate with the Democrat-led Senate to make sure that a lot of this language prevails. Our military and our nation is really counting on it.
Well, Congressman Jim Banks, speaking of the Senate, you are running for this the open Senate seat in the great state of Indiana. Do you have any primary opponents yet?
Well, we've got a couple of Democrats running, and we have a Democrat who's trying to run in the Republican primary. He filed the 1st of July. It appears that he's not eligible to get his name on the ballot because he's voted based on Indiana law. You got to vote in 2 consecutive Republican primaries to run as a Republican in the primary, and he didn't do that. So we're keeping an eye on that. I'm not taking anything for granted, Kurt. We're off to a great start. I kicked the campaign off in the middle of January, and here we are beginning the August time frame. I'm collecting signatures to get my name on the ballot, and anyone who's listening from Indiana, you can go to banksforsenate.com and get involved in our campaign. I need to gather signatures from every congressional district to get my name on the ballot. That's the process that we're in today. But I like you, I think the Senate needs a shake-up with conservatives who are there that understand what time it is, that our nation is we're at a point where we can't continue to negotiate with woke left-wing Democrats that negotiate the decline of our country. America is worth fighting for, and that's the type of attitude I've had in the House. We need more of that in the Senate, and that's why I'm running for the United States Senate.
Well, Congressman Jim Banks, they're going to throw everything they can at you. They think maybe obviously there are some tougher states than Indiana because Indiana's full of common sense patriots who will definitely hearken to someone like you. But they're still going to throw everything they have at you. What is your plan to win in Indiana? Because I know as a military guy, you're not going to take anything for granted.
Yeah, we've learned a lot of lessons in the Trump era, and Indiana has become more Republican because Donald Trump appealed to working class Republicans like my dad, who didn't vote Republican before, but are Republicans now because for the first time in my dad's life, Republicans are talking about being tough on China, putting American workers first, and securing the border and immigration policies that put American workers first. And I just believe, Kurt, that the more we focus on that agenda, that America first agenda that Donald Trump taught us appeals to a big sector of voters that weren't voting Republican before, the better we're going to do. And Indiana happens to be a very blue-collar state. A lot of voters like my dad that worked in steel mills and factories like my dad did. And when we go out and talk about those issues, we win those voters over. And that's why I have a good feeling that Indiana, even Hoosier voters have voted Democrat before recognize that this isn't their dad's Democrat Party. I mean, this is a radically socialist, left-wing Democrat Party that does not represent working-class families, doesn't represent Main Street. It represents something altogether very different. So that's what we're doing, is appealing to those voters on a platform and a record that I've had in the House for going on 8 years that I want to take to the United States Senate.
Well, Congressman Jim Banks, there seems to be two ways to go. One is focus on culture war. One is focus on bread and butter economics. We got about 30 seconds. Which one of those is going to be your primary focus in this Senate race?
Well, I don't think it's either or, but it's about preserving the great fabric of this country, the culture, the American way of life of this great country. That's been my focus in the House. And when we're talking about really radical ideas like allowing boys to compete against my daughters in sports, and when we're talking about opening the border wide open and letting fentanyl flood into this country and kill off millions.
Well, Congressman Jim Banks, thank you very much for joining us from vacation. I am Kurt Schlichter, a.k.a. Rollin' Thunder, here on the Hugh Hewitt Show. We will be right back, so stick around.
Portions of the Hugh Hewitt Show are brought to you by Food for the Poor.
I am the Lizard King. Kurt Schlichter here, closing out another gig on the Hugh Hewitt Show, meteorologically themed. My new name, Rollin' Thunder, Foggy Banks, a.k.a. Dwayne Patterson. How was the show? What do you think?
I think we survived another front rolling in. Yes,
another front rolling in.
Yes, it was a.
You could have said, "Hey, that it blew." You could have said that.
Well, I could have, but
you didn't.
It was better than that. So
it was a good show.
If
no arrests.
If you have your weather name and now I have my weather name, what would Hugh's weather name be?
That is puzzling. Do you have any ideas?
Well, if we're going with Hugh Hewitt and we've got to make a weather name, it would be something like, Dewey Dew Point or something.
Oh, that's perfect. Dewey Dew Point.
Yeah.
That's perfect.
Yeah. I think that could work.
Yeah, okay. All right. I don't think we're going to have a weather theme after this, though. I think this will kind of
blow over. Yes.
Thank you. The front is passing through. I wish we had more.
Media is never going to cover this the way we want media to cover this. So
we got to do it.
So when you've got a scandal like this and you've got just rampant corruption that's going on, and media's not going to do anything about it, and you don't have Democrats that are going to own up to it, the only thing you're left with is just open mockery, right?
I think open mockery is kind of my default.
Okay, well,
I mean, I immediately go to it, but I understand other people.
Hence the weather theme.
Hence the weather theme. Because, of course, that's all Joe Biden was talking about with the guys who were giving him millions of dollars.
Yes. I love the fact we didn't play the CNN cut. How CNN actually covered this. It was Zachary, what was his name? Zachary Cohen of CNN said this about what the alleged plot was between Hunter Biden and the oligarchs. Cut 15.
So Goldman sort of explaining that Archer qualified the topics of discussion on these phone calls as niceties that Biden sometimes didn't even know who was on the other line with his son Hunter. And, sources in the room telling CNN now that Archer did not point the finger directly at any sort of a connection between Joe Biden and his son's foreign business dealings, and rather, said that that Hunter Biden was selling the illusion of said access. Boris?
Really a stunning development.
So wait a minute. He didn't know who he was on the phone with as vice president, and that makes it better.
So he was taking money for access, but it wasn't money for access. He was taking money for the illusion of access. And to provide the illusion, he actually provided access.
I think you have accurately assessed their bizarre web of lies.
I mean, you're a lawyer. What would you do with this?
I would never have anything to do with something like this because this is not related to the law. I get, people are like, Kurt, what about you're a lawyer. You have a legal background. What is your assessment of everything that's going on with Hunter Biden, from his criminal cases to this potential impeachment? And I'm like, why are you asking a lawyer? Because this has nothing to do with law as I practiced it. Okay, we don't call the court and try and get other people's pleadings pulled. We don't hide things like immunity from every single thing that you ever did somewhere in the back of an annex's appendix in a plea agreement. We don't pretend that when a vice president gets on the phone that it's not to show that the vice president, this is a guy who can get the vice president on the phone. I mean, this doesn't happen. This is something different than the law. It is the opposite of the law. And it's destructive of the law because people mistake it for the law. But it is not the law. It is a giant scam. And, I think it's unbelievably damaging.
I'm not a lawyer, but from my standpoint, it looks like this family is playing jazz when it comes to ethics and morality, and
skirting the law. It doesn't.
Oh, I mean, I don't think there's an attempt to cover it up, but it's pretty blatant. This was the Joe Biden retirement plan.
Of course it was.
And then suddenly he somehow managed to get elected president. And
I still want to know where the shell company is for newly minted granddaughter 7.
Yeah, I mean, where's her? How's she going to cash in?
She's got to. She's
what is she, second tier kid? Well, I guess she probably is.
Well,
so wow. Well, anyway, I want to thank everybody here at the Hugh Hewitt program for another successful endeavor. Fair winds and clear skies. I'm Kurt Schlichter, a.k.a. Rolling Thunder. Hugh will be back tomorrow. Bye-bye.